Welcome to the Your Illini Nation pregame show. Bret Beherns here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, along with Derek Piper from IlliniInquirer.com. And the late breaking news within the last 30 minutes here, Ayo Dosunmu will not play tonight against the Wolverines. Certainly hurts their chances, but Illinois has won back-to-back games without Ayo on the floor. What's your first thoughts about him not playing tonight, Derek?
It's going to be a heck of a challenge. You come into this building, even with Ayo, the fact that Michigan's 12-0 in here, they've lost one game all year. Wondered how they'd come back from that COVID pause, but they're really rolling. They win at Ohio State. Iowa comes in here and loses by 20+. So without Ayo, I know, give Illinois credit for going on the road and beating Wisconsin. Just a large difference between a Badgers squad that's kind of reeling here of late and a Michigan team that's working their way in the conversation with Baylor and Gonzaga as the best team in the country. So it's going to be a tough one without that kind of guy as far as an All-American, really at both ends, because Michigan has great length. When you think about defending them, an Isaiah Livers, a Franz Wagner, Ayo was really going to help defensively. I know it's easy to look at his offensive impact first and foremost. It's a tough loss, but I understand why you're going to potentially play it cautious with him. Just have him right for postseason play. That's what you hope for ultimately.
Yeah. And this team, Big Ten title hopes, very, very slim at this point. Michigan would have to lose its last 3. Illinois would have to win its last 2 here this week. That would be winning percentage. We don't even know if the Big Ten, how it's quantifying a Big Ten regular season champion at this point, and so there's a lot to be determined there. The factors are very slim, as you mentioned, and Brett Underwood has mentioned several times. This team is trying to peak at the NCAA tournament, not right now against the Michigan team when a Big Ten title is very slim. We're keeping an eye out for Ayo. How about that, Derek Piper?
There you go.
We have not seen him here on the floor at Michigan. You can see behind us, the Illini just took the court here at Chrysler Center, trying to beat the Wolverines for a second straight year. We all remember, Derek, do you remember which side of the court it was on here that Ayo?
It was right here.
Okay, so Ayo right here on this side of the court beat Michigan in one of the most historic shots in Illinois basketball history, at least in a long time. Let's put it that way. What do you remember about that moment and about that game last year?
It was incredible. Ayo's had a lot of those closing time killer moments. That was as tough of a shot as he's ever hit late in the game, because Xavier Simpson was just draped all over him, and that was a true game winner, just knowing less than a second left on the clock. And of course, you remember a packed house in here, and Ayo kind of doing the LeBron where he his chest out at the crowd and all that. So a really cool moment. Again, that was just him doing spectacular, special things late in the game. But the pump fake right near that left elbow, Simpson stays there, right hand in his face, he elevates and hits it. And the Illini walk out of here with what was a quad 1 win, and a very good one.
All right, hope you're watching on your phone, maybe on your computer as well. We are live on Twitter right now, as well as Facebook and our WCIA3 live stream page. Just popped off a quick retweet there. Thanks so much for watching all season. This is it, Derek. We got today and then at Ohio State on Saturday, and that's the final 2 regular season games for this season. And it has been a wild ride to get to this point. It's gone quick in one sense. And Illinois, I'm just trying to soak it all in that sense, from a media member, from someone, you and I have both watched Illinois basketball for a long time. This is historic, and trying to just kind of soak that in of where we're at right now covering this team.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. When you start to think, and I was looking back, it's only the 4th game all year of 2 top 5 teams going against each other. Illinois has been part of 2 of those. When you think about Illinois versus Baylor and then playing against Michigan, these are very proud programs. Last time both teams were ranked going against each other was 1997. So it's been a long wait, in particular for Illinois. It's Michigan with John Beilein, goes to a couple Final Fours, but we keep talking about 2005. It's a long time ago. And just to be continuously in that kind of a conversation. And if you're Illinois, Brad said it this week, Illinois is going to be back in the tournament. They're going to be in a situation where they're nationally relevant. I believe that based on the way he's recruited and some of these guys that he's bringing in. But when are they going to have this kind of an opportunity to be a 1 seed, to have a Final Four caliber ceiling? So it's been a long wait just to even get to the tournament. But for them to do what they're doing right now and to be number 4 in the country, it's pretty incredible. And fans out there need to just realize that there's not that much time left. There's not very many guaranteed games left, and each one is very, very precious here as we go forward.
But because when you start to think about it, I don't want to go down the negative train here for Illini fans, but there's tonight, there's Saturday, and then there's only 2 more guaranteed games after that for this team. And you never know what'll happen. 1987, I know Illini Nation remembers that very well in that Austin Peay game, the NCAA tournament, and the Illini were bounced. And I'm not saying that's going to happen by any means, but like you mentioned, it's March. The calendar has turned. I feel like the heat has turned up a little bit in that as well. And here we are covering a top 4 matchup tonight. The Illini have never won a top 2 matchup on the road in program history. It's significant in that sense. It's going to take a huge dogfight tonight for them to be able to do that. But what do you take away from that Wisconsin game? You said that obviously this is a next level team in Michigan, but how much in your eyes did they prove to themselves, not only this season and in the future, that they can win without Ayo Dosunmu?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot to take from it, in particular what they were able to do defensively against Wisconsin early on, and I think that that's something they are going to need to translate tonight because Michigan's got a lot of firepower. But when they are able to be a top caliber defensive team, they can compete really with anybody. Of course, you're going to want Ayo out there, but turning defense into offense, when you get stops and you kind of build that momentum, you can win on the road, and that's something that they showed last year. They've showed it this year. And then Andre Curbelo to be able to come off the bench and make a lot of plays. I know you're still wanting to not see 5-6 turnovers in the box score, but for him to be able to just kind of control the game, get into the lane, make plays. Kofi takes over in that second half. And you just get different contributions from different guys. Jacob Grandison continues to just do a lot of things that help teams win. He's making shots from the perimeter. And DeMonte Williams was outstanding as well. So maybe some of the unsung guys, like DeMonte doesn't get talked about maybe enough. Jake, those kind of guys can really spotlight here and step up. And maybe ideally, now this is just optimistic thinking, that if they are able to elevate their game during this time when Ayo comes back, maybe that is the best case scenario for Illinois ultimately.
Right, and Ayo maybe doesn't feel that pressure of I have to go win the game. I have teammates around him, and obviously you want the ball in his hands in late game situations more times than not. He's proven that. But I think maybe for a mentality boost for Ayo as well, that hey, look, my team needs me, but they can also do it without me, and that we can be together and even stronger when I come back. Let's break down this matchup a little bit. Michigan is across the board, maybe one of the most talented teams. They have length. And for my money, it all starts with Hunter Dickinson and Kofi Cockburn tonight in that matchup. I'm excited to see Kofi with a one-on-one matchup. And I think they're going to do that tonight. How do you kind of look at this Hunter Dickinson-Kofi Cockburn matchup?
Yeah, really outside of since Illinois played Iowa. And Luka Garza and Kofi, it's been kind of a collective effort by the opponent to try to stop Kofi, and they have been outmatched, let's be honest. So to really have a one-on-one kind of mano-a-mano, and they belong in the same weight class, that's what you kind of have tonight, because Hunter Dickinson, 7'1", 255. I know Kofi still has about 30 pounds on him and a decent amount of more experience, but Hunter's played at an outstanding level, the runaway favorite for Big Ten Freshman of the Year. It's over. I mean, that's not even a conversation anymore. Right? And Luka just came in here a week ago and went 5 for 19 from the field. So Hunter with just kind of his two-way impact. They're very similar players when you think about Kofi and Hunter. Maybe some similar weaknesses as far as pulling them away from the paint, some ball screen. I know Brad mentioned both teams will kind of try to put both teams in some ball screen actions and see how that works. But there's no doubt about it. If Kofi is able to frustrate the freshman in any kind of way and out-execute him in this game, that'll go a long way. And clearly without Ayo, you're going to need any kind of advantage that you can get.
Yeah, if you're just joining us here, Ayo Dosunmu out tonight, officially will not play per a team spokesman at Michigan, and that's certainly a blow. But I think that's what makes this matchup between Kofi and Hunter that much more important, that they have to establish that post and win with Kofi. You know, he scores 20, how much did he have? 23 last week, I think it was. And we didn't even really talk about him. It was just like, yeah, that's just standard Kofi in that sense. And I think that also speaks to how far he has come in his game. But what other Michigan players really stick out to you in terms of like matchup problems for the Illini? Livers, obviously, and I think Mike Smith at the point, too, has been really good for them.
Absolutely, and they had a pretty good point guard in Xavier Simpson, particularly with just his defense, his grit, his toughness, but he had some shooting liabilities that kind of hurt their offense at times. You bring in Mike Smith, who's an Ivy League guy, and you think maybe making the jump from that level to this level is going to be tough. He's shooting 59% from three in Big Ten play, which leads the league. So for him to be able to provide that kind of a threat from the outside, he's also really quick off the bounce and can kind of facilitate for some other guys. So he's been big for them. But yeah, I think as far as mismatches, you look at Franz Wagner, who plays a lot of the four. He's 6'9", so has a lot of height on Illinois. If you think about whether they play Grandison there, play DeMonte, and he can take guys off the dribble. And he's scoring fantastically around the basket, can shoot as well. And I also look at Isaiah Livers, because I thought that was one that you really kind of needed Ayo for that. Because Livers is 6'7", he's about 230, 235. If you put a DeMonte on there, He doesn't have that height. I think he can score over you, and he's another one. I mean, they got shooters all around the perimeter,
right?
And Livers is just shooting it at a really, really high clip. Those two, keeping them from scoring on you consistently, and both of those guys also, from a defensive standpoint, getting hands up on shooters and cutting off driving lanes. We've seen how some length from some other teams has bothered this Illinois team.
And I feel like, who do you pick your poison against? You know, like if you target in on Franz or Isaiah, there's Hunter doing what he does, which is impressive alone as a freshman. If you try and take out Hunter, then you got shooters from the outside hurting you. I mean, that's what makes them so good, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be a situation where you trust your one-on-one matchups. You can't really afford to cheat off of anybody.
Right.
And, you know, Kofi against Hunter Dickinson, I think if you're Illinois, you expect him to be able to handle that one. The only thing you would caution is don't get in foul trouble, because I don't think Georgie, you know, being 6'9", is going to be a very good matchup for Hunter Dickinson. But really, like I said, because of the amount of weapons, kind of their depth, even if they bring Shondy Brown off the bench, is a very nice piece. You just kind of got to trust your guys to win one-on-one, be very sound, be able to help and move and rotate when those situations present itself. But team chemistry and just intensity at the defensive end is going to be really key. And
that matchup is key because, like you mentioned, does Kofi guard, or Kofi's going to guard Hunter, but if you bring Georgie in and he guards Hunter, how does that match up? I don't know if I like that either.
It's not going to go well. It will not go well.
If you put Georgie on Wagner, I don't like that either because he's quicker than him. It's just like that bad matchup in a sense of who guards who and how do you go about that. We're still looking for Ayo Dosunmu. I have not seen him yet, Derek, out here on the court at all. I don't know if that's necessarily surprising in that sense. Probably waiting in the locker room right now. And Brad said he was day-to-day. And he was in the picture this morning, which I thought was a great job from Illinois in that sense, kind of giving Michigan the hint that maybe he will play tonight, maybe he won't. How would you imagine that workout went this morning in terms of him trying to see if he could go?
I think he wanted to go, by all indications, is that he was out here in team shoot-around with the intentions of showing that he was ready to go and feeling good. And we talked to Brad some yesterday. Brad and the Illini program have been very careful about what they've put out there, but it sounded like, and you wonder with the shot to the face, is it concussion protocol? Is it more than just a broken nose? We've had a lot of those questions. It seems like Ayo is starting to feel more like himself. And I think ultimately, from what I've heard, is the doctors just made the call and he tried to test it and wanted to go, but they played it on the side of precaution and hope that he's able to go against Ohio State. So I'm sure that he's disappointed. You know the kind of competitor that he is, the want to show, even if Michigan is going to finish above them in the standings, the want to show that, hey, Illinois is the best team in the Big Ten, and to earn a 1 seed. We talked about this off camera, that if you're able to find a win, now it's going to be really tough without that guy, but this could solidify a potential 1 seed, best win on your resume by far.
And I think Illinois wins once this week. I think they're in a great position to get a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. They're at least guaranteed a 1 or 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament. They're not going to finish any worse than second in the Big Ten, which is significant enough to where this team has been, as Underwood has said all along. They haven't had a positive test since August. They've handled their business. But the matchups against Michigan present some really tough problems, and the Illini talked yesterday just how difficult tonight's game will be.
Like I said before, I'm all in for the challenge, and it's definitely going to be a great challenge for everybody. You know, we've had a hell of a season so far, and you know, we're here to improve, and that game is definitely going to be a statement game. You know, and we just have to, you know, go into Michigan with a killer mentality. You know, like we've been having the past few games, and you know, try and get the job done for sure.
All right, that was Andre Curbelo and Bret Underwood talking about this matchup that we have pinpointed here against Michigan. And like you mentioned, this would be the biggest win of the season. How are you approaching this week, though, Derek? And how should Illini Nation look at this week, knowing that with maybe 1 win, and I think that's all it'll take, they get that number 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament? Or in the NCAA tournament, excuse me.
I think you framed it correctly. And when you mentioned you're finishing no worse than second in the Big Ten, you lose tonight, it's solidified that that's going to be it. In what's considered the best league in the country, and some metrics show it's the best conference in a really long time, maybe ever.
Yeah, right.
Maybe ever since that you've had Ken Pom and all that.
Yeah.
I know that maybe Stephen Bardo and those out in the 80s were talking about maybe the Big Ten was
they
just
might disagree with
just
that.
as strong then. I have thought about that quite a bit, but yeah, that's quite a selling point. The fact that Illinois currently has 8 quad 1 wins, tied with Michigan for the most in the country. A win on the road at Ohio State would get you another one of those. And also it would kind of play the double whammy effect where Ohio State takes a loss and they're in contention for one of those final number 1 seeds. They take that loss, knock down a little bit, you get the win, and you kind of get that nice jump on Ohio State in what could potentially be for that 4th 1 seed.
All right, we'll have to see how it plays out tonight as the Illini are getting set here to play Michigan at Chrysler Center. Still no Ayo Dosunmu here on the court as Bret Beherns and Derek Piper here join you in Ann Arbor. As we kind of move along here, how much confidence do you feel the Illini have right now, and what does that do, knowing that they can play without Ayo, that they can win 2 games? And how do you feel like this builds for them just mentally, the players like an Andre Corbello, like an Adam Miller, even a Kofi, who isn't maybe the most vocal guy in the world, but they need him to be that player now and step up that much since Ayo's not there.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a ton of confidence in the fact that you've won 9 out of your last 10. And while we can sit here and talk about Wisconsin not being quite the same team, or they're disappointing as far as their expectations as its preseason top 5 in the country, and I think Illinois going into that building where they haven't won a whole lot here recently in the last 10, 15 years. No one really has in the Big Ten. So when you're able to get that done without your All-American, that puts the seed in your head that, hey, we can compete with anybody. Right. We have the ability to get it done. The fact that Andre has had a couple nice performances here recently against Nebraska, against Wisconsin, the way Adam Miller came out early against the Huskers at home and was able to score. I mean, this is a very confident team. They've let everybody know that throughout the course of the season and even before. But the fact that Kofi is, a walking double-double, and when you have that guy on the court and you have a lot of these talented pieces and players, they're going to feel like they can win. And I'm sure they'll come out tonight very inspired, try to get one for Ayo, and not just fully expect that, hey, Michigan's really good and we don't have our guy, that it's going to be a blowout, which we'll see.
Yeah. What do you make of Brad Underwood's comments after the game on Saturday, kind of saying, hey, we got pride, we're going to play, maybe questioning Michigan's character a little bit? Did that cross the line, or was maybe that okay?
That's a great question. I don't know. He had a message to put out there, which he did clearly, and Michigan fans out there, if you've read Twitter, have taken quite a bit of exception.
Bulletin board material in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure Brad had to know that, saying some things were going to get their attention. Yeah. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I don't know if it's fair to say that, Juwan Howard has questionable character for not playing that game, because we just don't know the ins and outs of who made that decision. Was it the Michigan athletic director? Was it the basketball program saying, hey, no, we're not ready? But they're also, in my opinion, there's fair criticism to be had when your women's program plays a game off the same timeline, the same pause,
Absolutely.
and you decide not to. I don't think there's any reason or any way you can frame it in that. I don't want to say that Michigan was solely ducking Illinois. I think they would have not played against any team that they felt like they were going to lose against, just knowing they're standing in the seeding, they're standing in the Big Ten standings. But I understand Illinois' frustration, that they were ready to go. Michigan didn't have any positive tests, and it was going to be an unfortunate circumstance for Michigan. But hey, Illinois got one tonight just based on the way things shook out.
Right, and would they have played a Nebraska or a Northwestern? That's the question I have. The other question I have is, I don't know how much influence Juwan Howard has. And coming in and being a relatively new coach, what's the relationship with his athletic director, with his chancellor or president of the university, or even the Big Ten office and Kevin Warren? And maybe my biggest thing with anything Brad Underwood has said, the criticism should be directed towards the Big Ten office and their lack of communication and transparency, because Brad has made that clear that there has not been a lot of communication between those two parties, between Illinois and maybe other schools as well. It doesn't sound like other schools across the Big Ten. Here's what Underwood said about not playing and Michigan opting out of that game, let's say.
This team has resilience. This team has grit. This team has fight. It's not our fault that, like I said, many times we've been perfect through COVID since August, and it's not our fault that the games got canceled or road games, but we're gonna honor those because we're a member of this league, and we're gonna honor those games, and we're not gonna be the teams that pick and choose what we play for whatever. We're gonna show up, and this team, I think it's about character, and this team has a ton of it.
Bret Beherns and Derek Piper back here in Ann Arbor, and we just saw Ayo Dosunmu come out of the tunnel for the first time here out on the court. I want to zoom in here so you can see him and get your first look at Ayo tonight, Derek, who will not be playing and not wearing a mask or anything. I don't know if that surprises anybody here. How did the Illini get it done tonight without Ayo?
Yeah, that's a question. It's going to be really tough, really difficult. You're going to need guys to be able to step up and really make perimeter shots, because the way, as we've talked about throughout this broadcast, the length that Michigan has, they're number one in the Big Ten as far as 2-point field goal percentage. They just contest around the rim so well. So to have a guy like Curbelo be able to break things down and really make Michigan help and open things up for a Trent Frazier, for a Adam Miller, for a Jacob Grandison, you got to be able to get that going from the outside. And also, one concern, while the Wisconsin win without Ayo was very, very encouraging, you cannot afford 20 turnovers. You can't afford maybe even 12 when you look at the way that Michigan is such a high-powered offense and the ability for them to get up and down the floor and get out in transition. And you think about Franz Wagner, 6'9", with his ability to get into passing lanes. That's one thing that he really thrives at, is turning defense into offense. So Illinois has to not provide him a lot of those opportunities. And also, as we talked about, the Kofi-Hunter Dickinson matchup, you got to win that one, and it probably has to be decisively when you think about just making up for the absence of an All-American. Kofi has to be able to outplay him, maybe even put Hunter in some foul trouble, force them to play some of their backup big guys. So it's going to be tough, because I don't necessarily look at this one and say there have been other matchups in the Big Ten where, oh, Kofi's going to dominate on the glass and the other team's just not going to be able to compete with that, and that's 20 easy points. I hesitate to say easy, not to discredit Kofi there, but that's kind of how it seemed. And I don't think you get that tonight because of Dickinson's presence, just because of the way that Michigan has the size and the length. So it'll be difficult, that's for sure. I mean, that's an understatement, really.
Ayo flashing some moves here, Derek. Maybe looking a little bit more like himself here at Chrysler Center.
He's got the shooting shirt on. Does he have the shorts on underneath? Is he going to pull a surprise here? That would be something, but no, unfortunately the official word's out, but I'm telling you, he feels good, and I know that he wanted to play in this game.
All right, Ayo Dosunmu will not play. That's the word here from Chrysler Center, as Illinois, ranked 4th in the country, gets set to take on number 2 Michigan as the Wolverines enter the court here. Derek, as we come back on cam here, I'm curious your thoughts on this game and what you got predicted tonight on IlliniInquirer.com.
Yeah, as I said, as far as the matchup challenges, I think the length that Michigan has, we saw it in the loss to Baylor, we saw it against Michigan State. That's something that Illinois has to prove they can handle, because you think about the NCAA tournament, and if you don't want that to be the reason you lose.
Yes.
You got to be able to make that adjustment. We haven't quite seen them do that yet. And again, Kofi's going to have to step up. Everyone's going to have to step up when you're missing a guy like that. So originally, just kind of feeling it out, and if Ayo was going to play, not knowing whether it'd be 100%, I thought it'd be probably about a 6-7 point game. I haven't adjusted my expectations now with Ayo out. I'll be honest, I don't think it's close. I think 79-65, Michigan here at home, and they probably extend that lead in the second half and really pull away.
Okay, I think it's going to be just a little bit closer. I think it's going to be high scoring, though. I think both teams are going to be in the 70s. I'm going to say 79-70. I think Illinois is going to battle. I think they're going to do their best to try and I don't want to say this, maybe a little too soon for Illini fans. Make it a street fight a little bit. That might be too soon. I'm sorry about that, Illini Nation. But just try and be physical. I want to see them come and be physical. And I'm interested how the refs are going to call this, because I think we've seen it both ways in the league this year. We've seen some battles like Michigan State where it's been physical. We've seen some other games where it really hasn't been, and they've called tic-tac. So I think the refs hopefully don't play a part in this tonight. But I'm going to say 79-70 Michigan. I think they're going to defend home court. And we'll see how it plays out tonight without Ayo Dosunmu. The Illini hoping to get him back Saturday at Ohio State, 3 o'clock tip there. Derek, we'll see you there at Ohio State For all your pregame coverage, read IlliniInquirer.com. Check them out after the game as well. We'll have all your highlights and my report coming up at 10. For Derek, I'm Bret saying so long from Chrysler Center here in Ann Arbor. The big news, Ayo Dosunmu will not play tonight for the Illini.